Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles, and I've got two battles for you in today's video, both of them taking place on Himmelsdorf, but aside from that similarity, they couldn't be any more different if they tried. Kicking off the festivities is XB33. We'll just call him Dave. Come on, it's inevitable. He is, of course, in the most ridiculously, brokenly overpowered tank in the game, the Panzer IIJ. Wargaming have been trying to introduce more overpowered tanks than this for the best part of the last 10 years, but despite their best efforts, and fair play to them, they have come close on a number of occasions. But nothing is ever going to beat the Panzer IIJ. This is a Tier 3 light tank that has better armour than the KV-1, which, let me remind you, is a Tier 5 heavy tank. It's a very good Tier 5 heavy tank. And its armour is not as good as this Tier 3 light. I have a Panzer IIJ, I have to confess, to my eternal shame. I've had it for a long time. Back when I got it, the only way to get one of these things was to buy the bonus code for it from somebody who had been to Russia and actually bought a boxed copy of World of Tanks and then brought it back to Europe with him. And they were not cheap. These days, of course, well, they're still not cheap, but Wargaming does like to trot this tank out every now and then, usually for a special occasion around Christmas or the New Year, where you can purchase one for the low price of around about €100. The excuse is always, of course, that the tank itself isn't what you're paying €100 for. €100 is for the 6 months of premium time and 10,000 gold, or whatever it is, that is also bundled with this machine. But they're not fooling anybody. We all know that if anybody forks over €100 for any kind of bundle that includes the Panzer IIJ, nobody really cares about anything in that bundle except the Panzer IIJ. So what is it about this machine that makes it so ridiculously absurd? Well, it should be fairly obvious by now, based on the number of hits that he's taken and the amount of damage, 0, that he's sustained. It is, of course, the armour. The gun is terrible. You'll often see Panzer IIJ drivers firing nothing but gold ammo at Tier 3. 400 rounds of APCR. And Dave has gone through 130 of them already. Nobody makes a profit in this tank. This is not the type of premium tank that you buy in order to earn credits. The sole reason for buying and playing a Panzer IIJ is to wave your repeen in the faces of your opponents and feast upon their delicious salty tears. Don't worry, Dave, I'm not judging you. It would be hypocritical of me in the extreme if I were to do so. I have one of these tanks myself. I just haven't played it in a few years. I was running up too much of a water bill with all of the showers that I had to take every time I took this thing into battle. Things are, however, not going to go all Dave's way, because he is not the only person driving a Panzer IIJ in this battle. There's one on the enemy team as well. He's taken almost no damage, and he's the last enemy tank alive. One Panzer IIJ against 5 enemies, one of which is also a Panzer IIJ. And yes, they're both emptying their pockets at each other as fast as their credit cards can be swiped through the card reader. And, well, yeah, they're not really doing much damage to each other at all, are they? You see, the Panzer IIJ used to be not completely invulnerable. It had weak spots. The commander's hatch on the top was quite prominent, and there were a couple of escape hatches on the sides that could be penetrated at close range. Well, Wargaming clearly couldn't have that. So a couple of years ago, the side weak spots were basically removed. It still looks like there are weak spots there, but they're the same thickness as the rest of the side armour. And the commander's hatch was both lowered and strengthened. This tank now has 0 weak spots. Now, you may recall, if you can cast your mind back as far as barely a minute ago, that this enemy Panzer IIJ was fighting 5 tanks. Well, 4 of them have basically just suicided. One of them actually did suicide. The AMX-38 managed to kill himself by crashing. The others suicided by Panzer IIJ. Rather than attempting to actually cap, they all came up and tried to fight him. Well, they are low tier, it's a learning process, and hopefully what they've learned from today's experience in this game about tanks that fight each other is to not fight each other when one of those tanks is a Panzer IIJ. Now, there are just under 10 minutes of this match remaining, and we're down to this, a 1 versus 1. Panzer IIJ versus Panzer IIJ. A veritable clash of the titans. Both tanks probably have at least 200 rounds of gold ammo remaining. 2 overpowered tier 3 tanks enter, only 1 will leave. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, place your bets. Which of them will it be? You may have noticed that Dave's team have been yelling at him, swearing at him, calling him a noob, reporting him for not shooting the enemy Panzer IIJ. Well, that just proves what little they know. Nothing can damage a Panzer IIJ, especially not another Panzer IIJ. Which means that these two guys are resorting to, well, having to ram each other. Dave can actually inflict some damage in a way. He can at least stop the enemy Panzer IIJ from capping, which is why he's saving his ammunition, because every time it looks like he's about to win by capping, he just damages his tracks, which is the only part of the other tank that he is actually capable of damaging. If anybody else on Dave's team had thought of maybe going for the cap circle rather than killing themselves trying to fight the unkillable tank, they'd have won by now. You can't hold it against them, of course. This is only tier 3. It's when they do this sort of thing at tier 10 because they didn't learn not to do it down here at tier 3 that it is especially tragic. Seven minutes of this kind of pulse-pounding action to go. I'm not sure your hearts can take it. Dave's blocked 1500 damage. I don't know how much the enemy Panzer IIJ has blocked, but it's probably not going to be that much different. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing. We'll skip ahead through the following 6.5 minutes of this, when Dave has tried to pump 200 rounds of gold ammunition through what used to be a weak spot. Used to be, but not anymore. Apparently somebody once killed a Panzer IIJ in a random battle, so Wargaming took swift action to ensure that that could never happen again. And Dave has now expended 400 rounds of gold ammunition and managed to buy himself a draw. On the bright side, he did manage to get himself a steel wall medal out of it, not exactly surprising. A tank with 510 health managed to bounce 3,000 points of damage, and all it cost him, even with the premium account, was a mere 124,416 credits. Totally worth it. Moving on swiftly to today's second main event, also on Himmelsdorf, but this battle couldn't be any more different if it tried. This, in the American Tier 10 heavy tank, well, technically one of two, I suppose. Actually, how many Tier 10 American heavies are there now? I'm going to quickly check the wiki page. No, still just the 2. I wondered for a minute there because I know they've managed to shoehorn a couple of Tier 10 medium premium, well, not premium tanks, reward tanks, but so far, no Tier 10 heavies, just this and the T-57 heavy. World of Warships was of course the first wargaming title to cross that particular line in the sand when they decided it was a perfectly good idea to allow people who'd never played the game before to buy their way into Tier 10 battles with Tier 10 premium Yamatos complete with legendary mods that under normal circumstances you'd have to spend 6 months grinding random battles for in order to unlock. Say what you like about World of Tanks, at least they haven't crossed that particular line yet. Anyway, this is Takatako in the T110E5. Actually, you know, now that I come to think of it, I mean, I did say that these two battles had nothing in common other than the fact that they were both on Himmelsdorf, but, well, that's not strictly true, is it? Because the Panzer IIJ was a machine that was extremely well armoured to begin with, and then had its armour buffed by having some weak spots removed, and having the commander's hatch on top strengthened. And the T110E5 was a tank that had an extremely well armoured turret. Still does, in fact. There are portions of the front of the turret of this tank that have an effective armour thickness of 700mm, depending on the angle. The problem with the E5, of course, was that dirty, great big tumour on top of the turret. The little combination commander's hatch and machine gun turret there, that made it just about as pointless trying to go hull down in this thing as it is in the M3 Lee, thanks to the 37mm completely pointless gun turret on the top of that thing as well. Say what you like about War Thunder, but at least in that, the 37mm turret on top of the M3 Lee actually serves a purpose. Not so in World of Tanks. And the T110E5 did share the same problem. I say did because, of course, Wargaming went and buffed the armour on that machine gun turret slash commander's hatch. And it's effectively around about 300mm thick now, so good luck trying to pen that. While we're here, I'd just like to draw your attention, no, not to the Su-130PM, but to the Jaegeru who just lumbered around the corner and derped a shot at, well, not quite sure what he was aiming at, but he didn't hit it, at a range of less than 100 metres, with his dirty great big 170mm gun. And he's going to try again. You ready? Wait for it. Wait for it. Actually, if you're waiting for that Jaegeru to do any damage to anything in this battle, spoiler alert, you're going to be waiting a really, really long time. Taco is just going to leave him to it. And they're going to go around this side. Him, the Lerva, and the E75. And they're not planning on stopping for anything. There's his first kill, an M48 pattern. T10 around the corner, backing off. Leading from the front, as a good Tier 10 heavy tank should. Lands a nice shot into the lower glacis of the T10. Takes the hill low, his gun depression, allowing this to work. Takes a hit from the Leopard prototype. It doesn't really do much damage. Leopard prototype actually took a hit there from a 120mm gun and it bounced. That's probably the first and only time that's ever going to happen. To be fair, it did strike his upper glacis at an extreme angle, an auto bounce angle. Meanwhile, the Jaegeru is losing a fight with an IS-3. Yes, really, look at this. How is that even possible? I don't even... yeah, I don't know. I've got nothing. Can you guess how much damage that Jaegeru has done during the course of this battle? I'll give you a clue. It starts with a 0. Uh-huh. Yeah, really. Remember, that thing has a gun with 258mm of penetration with standard ammunition, and he was fighting an IS-3 at a range of less than 20 metres. And failed to do any damage. Meanwhile, Taco has come across a far more efficient method of disposing of that Panzer VII than continuing to pump shots into him. That ammunition doesn't grow on trees, you know. And it's at this point when, still outnumbered, the enemy team start capping. That is, Taco's team are outnumbered, not the enemy team. Now this is encounter battle, so it does take longer than normal to cap, and in fact it's going to take the enemy team nearly 4 minutes to win by capping, so you might think that there's absolutely no reason for Taco to rush. Except there is. And Taco, in his haste to get down into this lower road, actually manages to inflict more damage upon himself in that one move than the entire enemy team have managed to do thus far to him. But Taco knows that he does have to get a move on. See, it's not the tank in the cap circle, of which there is only one at the moment. It's tanks like the SU-130PM that could be moving into position to block anybody from getting back in order to reset. And he and pretty much every surviving member of his team did start on the top of the hill, as far away from that cap circle as it was possible to get and still be on Himmelsdorf. They cannot afford to stop for anything, particularly now that there are 3 enemy tanks in the cap circle, and they will have capped in less than a minute. He cannot afford to take the time it would be required to stop and deal with the M46. He's going to have to take a hit, auto-aim, kill him on the drive-by without slowing down. 2 enemy tanks remaining. T-31st, got him. That just leaves the FB-207. And there's just time, after dispatching the arty and getting his 9th kill of the game, to form a very quick battlefield platoon with a T-55A and snatch himself a cheeky little brothers-in-arms for at least 3 kills between all surviving members of the platoon, and a crucial contribution medal for 12 kills between all members of the platoon, to go along with his high caliber, Top Gun, Radley Walters medal and Steel Wall. 9 kills, 10 medals and awards in total, 4,500 damage blocked, and just a whisker short of 6,000 damage done. Not quite the same as the Panzer II battle. I think you'll be forced to agree. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed both of today's battles, although I suspect you probably enjoyed one more than the other. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.